Welcome back to Whitt Acres. Today we're going to be down in the vegetable garden puttering around with pumpkins. Hello girl, you helping in the garden today? It's a bit of a duck day out there right now. It's sprinkling a little bit. They're calling for some more rain, but we're only getting a really light shower. Echo Pup, we're not working on the rose bed today, even though it needs a lot of work. Oh, the geyser. The ducks are out foraging in the field. I have all the chickens in the summer run, so they're not scratching through the gardens. The pond bank is actually filling in pretty good right now. I didn't even get any of the annuals in. We just have some calendula coming up and some volunteer sunflowers. But I do need to get in there and weed out the pond bank so I can get my annuals planted and we can have some late summer color. Right now we have Chinese forget-me-not blooming. This is actually a white one. That's kind of neat. We also have the purple lupin still blooming here and the purple triangularis oxalis. It has a nice little purple bloom. And then over here we have the matching dark foliage on the penstemon and a beautiful light purple and white bloom on it. Oh, little ones, you're getting pretty big now, aren't you? Yeah, you are. You need some fresh water. You're so big, buddy. You're starting to get your white fluff on you too. Oh, Pup, it's raining. We did end up with some yellow poppies over here. I wanted this to be full of poppies, so I called it the poppy bed and I put in a bunch of poppy seeds, but they didn't really come up and we're starting to get a lot of perennials actually taking over this bed. We did end up with a pretty nice bloom here on the 9 bark, but it is finishing up here now. And the daylilies are just starting to open. Some gorgeous orange daylilies are gonna open all over the property. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to do the end of May garden stroll, but that just means whenever we do the mid-June garden tour, we're gonna have a lot of new stuff to see. But we're coming down to the vegetable garden today to do some work because it's the beginning of June and I still have to get some plants started. I got the butterfly bush inside the pollinator ring all pruned back so we can see the gladiolas and the lilies popping up. In the raised bed here, we have the Swiss chard starting to bolt and go to seed. Down here, we have the chamomile flowering, some beautiful little petals. The onions here are still looking good, and we did get some greens to pop up. We have a nice little bed here of greens that we can start to do cut and come again on them. So I'll be able to share some of these greens with the ladies and some of the peas because they're putting on pods. We've been getting a lot of blooms and we're starting to get a lot of pods here. It looks like even a couple of them are starting to fatten up. Oh, little girl. I did get my potatoes in the ground. I had to weed out this section, but I didn't have my cabbage in like I wanted to. So this bed was open and easy to plant in. So I got my potatoes in there and you can see them starting to poke up through the straw already. I'm gonna weed out some of this grass and then put another layer of straw over top of them. Oh, and look, a free oak tree. I did get some work done down here yesterday and the day before, so I'm gonna throw you back so you can get all caught up. So this isn't the best rototiller, but I'm happy to have it. It's really helping me open up some spots here. And now I have a pretty decent planting surface on top of this mound to get my pumpkin plants in. I did use this old piece of tarp that I already had stretched out for the squash mound. I burned planting holes into this tarp already, and I'm gonna have to do that for the rest of the tarp going down. And then I completely covered it on the back side of the mound, trying to snuff out more of those weeds. Excuse me, little girl. What are you doing in there? Hey, you look like a potato, but you're not a potato. Come on out. Out. Good girl. But I have 8 open planting holes already, so I do want to get those planted today. But here in my area, the beginning of June is when you really want to get your pumpkins planted if you want to harvest them before Halloween. And I would like to have some orange pumpkins to decorate with. Not just you, Lils. You're an orange pumpkin. Yes, you are. I also want to put some string in the weed whacker so I can knock down all the weeds on the front of the mound that came up. And then I'm thinking I'm probably going to stretch another roll straight across the front of this mound around the trees, trying to snuff out as much of the weeds as I can. And I don't plan on mulching it over yet, so I'll still be able to move this and change things around if I want to. But I did pick up some topsoil and some garden soil here to help me get some things planted. Now the giant pumpkin patch is doing a lot better here after this last rototilling. Oh, Lils, try not to compact the soil. I have a simple plank here set up so I don't compress the soil as I'm walking around it, checking on things and putting the stakes in. I also have some bread trays sitting around so I can get right up close to the pumpkin. But I think we're doing good so far. We're a little bit over 8 feet. The secondaries are really starting to shoot out, and I'm really going to need to get in there and start covering up some node points. And that's why I picked up some extra garden soil. To grow a giant pumpkin, you're gonna want as many roots going into the ground as possible, feeding the plant. Whoa, Littles, don't get too close to the pumpkin plant, girl. And on the plant, it has node points where each of the leaf comes out. It has a little junction where it has all its different growth. Hey, puppy, make a big round curve. Come on, come on. I know you got little feet, but you're getting too close to the pumpkin. It's starting to rain again, and they're wondering why we're not taking cover, huh, pups? You just hang out here. On the pumpkin plant, we have junction points. The leaf comes out, a new vine will shoot out, we have a tendril that comes out, and then we also have a male flower or two that'll pop out. Once this secondary tendril comes out, we have the main vine, that's the primary tendril. And then off of that main vine, we have more vines, and we call those secondaries, the primary and then the secondary. And as the pumpkin grows and gets bigger, we'll even have tertiary vines, which is a fancy way to say third. But at these node points, another thing happens. A root will actually come right out of the bottom and shoot into the soil, expanding the root system for the whole plant. And one thing that giant pumpkin growers figured out, if you pack soil around that node point, you can actually get another root to come out of the top and turn and go into the soil, expanding the root system even more. So I'm going to be working on that today as well. The bigger the root system, the bigger the pumpkin. Huh, Lils? If I line this up, it'll look like I grew, little girl. Lils. We are starting to get a decent garden rain right now, though. Little girl, you're getting way too close to the end of that pumpkin. But this is looking a lot better down here. We have some nice soil coverage. You can see how I piled up the soil right around the node point. I tried to keep a pretty decent clump on there so the rain doesn't wash it away. And I did sprinkle some of this Myco Plus root inoculant on there before I covered it. I really want a big pumpkin this year. Bigger than you, Lils. And taking a closer look at my leaves, I think I'm gonna start adding some fertilizer. So I'm gonna get the watering can and wet my little mounds here, and then hopefully we get a nice garden rain to saturate it in. Oh, what's that, the sun? Oh, we might get a rainbow here. But that feels good to get that done. That should set the pumpkin up for a nice boost of growth. Be careful, Lils. I am starting to get a female pumpkin flower right here, but we don't want a pumpkin yet. So I'm gonna have to break this one off too. Just a little pinch there and pull that little pumpkin off. You can tell it's a female pumpkin because it has a little pumpkin at the base. The male flowers you can see here don't have anything underneath the flower. Oh, little girl. But to grow a giant pumpkin, but I think I want the plant, but we're only at about 8 feet and I want a bigger plant before I start setting the pumpkin. So I'm planning on it growing out at least another 4 feet before I try and pollinate a flower. All right, pups, next project. Now I'm gonna use another bag of this garden soil to fill in these holes that I have in the tarp. I'm just gonna use it to make a nice little planting area, and then I'm gonna sow some seeds in here. Like I said, I want to grow some pumpkin over here, but I also want to sow some watermelon as well. And I definitely should have had the plant started already, but I'm just going to sow some seeds. So I'm going to grab the seeds right now. I might end up stopping at the store later this week and picking up a started plant, but I want to get these started just in case I don't do that. What happened to the rain? I was really hoping to get some water in the pond. Alright, I got the first 8 holes here amended and planted. I dug out the hole with my hori hori, which is just a garden knife. It's Japanese for dig dig. Definitely my most universal tool in the garden. If you don't have one of these in your gardening, you probably should get one. I'll put a link in the description. But I used the hori hori to dig up the soil a little bit in the circle, and then I used the bagged garden soil to amend a nice little area in there, and then I put a handful or 2 of the seed starting mix on top so we have a nice area for the seed to start, and then it can reach into the more nutritious soil. In the first spot here I planted an all sweet watermelon. It actually has an orange center. The second spot here I had these Lady Godiva pumpkins, so hopefully we can get some nice decorations out of this one. The next 2 spaces here are behind the Royal Empress tree, so there's not a lot of space for them to grow. I went with a Waltham butternut squash. This is actually a sacrifice plant. And what I mean by that is the bugs really like this plant. So whenever it's planted, it usually gets eaten first. So I planted them in both of these spots here. Hopefully we can get one to bear fruit. But if not, hopefully its sacrifice won't be in vain and the other plants can bear fruit. Like this next one here, which is a crespo squash. It's actually a really warty looking pumpkin, which I think will just look great as decoration. So we have one here. After that, we have a giant bullet head wax melon from Baker Creek. I think it's fun to grow giant vegetables, so we're gonna try this one out. I'll pop. And then in this area, I planted a couple pumpkin seeds here in the front, but I'm not sure if those ones are gonna pop. So on the back side of this area, just not to waste the space, I planted some snake gourds. Hopefully something will pop up. And on the very last one over here, I did have some pumpkin seeds soaking in water, and I planted my last giant pumpkin seeds in here. This year in my attempt to grow a giant pumpkin, I ordered some seeds online at Worldwide Giant Growers, so I had 3 of them to start. I got 5 seeds and I started 3 of them already, and I put the other 2 in here. So hopefully these will pop up and start growing and be a nice backup plant for my other plant. Now my friend also saved some, one of my friends that grew a giant pumpkin last year saved his seed, so I have some more of those seed, and I'm gonna be planting those across the rest of the mound here. That way I'm spreading out my risk and I can hopefully get a pumpkin to maturity and give me some seeds for next year. Even if it doesn't grow giant this year, it'll still carry the giant genetics into next year to try again. So I have some more garden soil in the bag here that I'm gonna be amending the holes with, and then I'm gonna be adding a little bit of this seed starter mix that I already have moistened right on top where the seed's gonna go, just to give the seed a little bit easier start. But this landscaping fabric I used last year, so it already had some holes in it. But as you can see, we have a new piece over here, so I gotta burn some new holes. Now this is a woven plastic fabric, so you don't wanna cut it or it'll start to fray. So I brought out the little propane torch. It's gonna be best to burn a hole, singeing the edges and fusing all the woven fabric together so it can't unravel. And I'm not being too exact, but I'm going about 4 to 5 feet on center. What are you yelling about? Of course she stops yelling as soon as I put the camera on her. Pretty sure all her ducks are in the pond. Up pop. Before we start any fires, we're definitely going to want to have some water available. Up pop. So we're just going to eyeball a distance here. And put it in the center. That should be big enough. Perfect. Now you don't want to step on that because all this plastic will stick to your shoe. So just go ahead and wet her down. And then we do it all over again. Alright, it's the next day. It got late last night. I had to go in and eat dinner and then go up and close out the barn. So I'm going to show you where we left off. Echo Pup taking some shade. We got rain last night. Today's actually pretty warm and sunny already. We got this whole side of the mound planted into the fabric that we already had holes in, and then we went and burned new holes going down the rest of the mound. I used a little Coleman propane torch. You can get those at a camping section in the store or on Amazon. Easy, pup. We have those holes planted. Come here. Out. So on this section, I planted some more Atlantic Deals giant pumpkin seeds going over to the bucket. I was trying to keep it even, coming down the same 2 lines of the tarp here, but then I realized my tarp doesn't stay on top of the mound straight, so I got out of whack here and I had to make the hole a little bit over. But not a big deal, I just got back on track for the rest of them. Ooh, we did get some rain last night. But I used my hory to dig out a hole here where I rototilled on top of the mound so I could have a nice hole. And then I amended that hole with some garden soil, and then right on top I put some seed starting mix where I sowed my seeds. And I have a little bit more mix here, but now it's a little wet. Huh, Pop? You find another shade tree? Good boy. So you can see the hole here I was digging out to amend with the garden soil, and then I just have to finish the last 3 going down the mound. And I also want to get the weed whacker out and get this thistle chopped down and maybe get another row of fabric laid. What's this? Is this a potato bloom? My potato is blooming. This is a volunteer potato that's just coming up in the patch from last year, but hey, it's blooming. This was my in-ground potato patch last year, but I didn't get to it early enough this year, and then I saw a bunch of volunteer sunflowers coming up, so I just left it go to the volunteers. And we have a lot of volunteers coming up in the raised beds too, but I did get some things planted. We have some squash in here now. I sowed some zucchini seeds underneath the sunflowers, and they're starting to come up. Another volunteer potato that was in the compost. And then in this bed we have some more sunflowers and the onions, but now we also have the tomatoes. I planted the celebrity tomatoes that I started from seed in here and some basil in between them. I think they're just starting to take root here from the transplant, and now they're starting to push some new growth. I think this one's even a volunteer. And I also put some basil in here between them, just because basil and tomatoes are a great pair plant. Not just in the kitchen, but in the garden too. So I have tomatoes planted around the outside of the onions here, and then we had a volunteer come up here at the end. I'm hoping this is a cherry tomato. This one's the biggest one so far, and this is a volunteer that just came up in the bed. It's pretty branchy, so I'm thinking it's a cherry tomato. That would be the best, because I don't have one of those planted yet. So I had this rubber mat laying over here next to the gate. I just kept it down there as weed control. And when I picked it up to move it, we had a 4-foot black snake slither out into the cut flower garden. Now Echo Pup does not like snakes, so whenever he smells snake, he goes after them. He ended up spooking it out of the cut flower garden. It slithered over here into the J bed, and I think it's living in the J bed now. Huh, Pop? Yeah, you were sniffing the J bed for a long time, huh? You were barking at it. He didn't get it, so I know it's still out here. But it's good to see the potatoes growing up now. I didn't get as many in as I wanted to, but I kind of got them in late, so I'm just happy to have some. So I'm not at the point where I'm growing and raising and storing all my own food yet. I feel like I'm more in a learning and building phase right now. So of course I'm still learning on how to grow different things, but I'm also learning on what things I actually want to grow. And that really comes down to what you eat. Huh, Pup? Echo Pup is a raw fed dog, so he gets all raw meat. He does not get any kibble, and I do raise a lot of his meat for him, which is a big reason why I started my Homestead channel in the first place. But I've been gardening now for about 4 or 5 years, I think, on this channel, and for much of the beginning I was actually vegan. That didn't work out too well for me. I'm actually carnivore now. Mostly I just eat meat, but I do actually eat some vegetables, which is why I'm growing potatoes, garlic, and onions. My mom likes tomato sandwiches in the summer, so we're growing tomatoes. And all the squash, zucchini, and cucumbers, they're all going to the animals. All the pumpkins are for decoration, and then they go to the animals. And then the giant pumpkin's just a hobby. I think that was a catbird. Huh, Pop? And this one's a volunteer, but I'm also growing some greens because the birds love greens. They also love peas too. My dad likes the taste of a fresh spring pea as well. And right now the asparagus fern is actually overgrowing the pea trellis, but they're still growing in there. But I'm in a learning and building phase right now, so I'm just trying to be immersed in nature and enjoy nature every day. Like one of my favorite YouTubers would say, make your waiting room your classroom, and that's what I'm just trying to do here. Maybe whenever I get a wife and kids, I can actually step up production and know what to do. But right now, we're just having fun. Huh, Pup? Ooh, the geyser. But speaking of which, I actually had baby chicks hatch out this morning, so I need to go take care of them before I do any gardening. And we're back. It's taken me all day to get back down to the gardens here. And we have 6 new baby chicks here on the homestead. They might actually be hatching out more right now. But I really want to get this squash mound finished so I can check it off the list in my head. Up, Pop. I'm gonna get all this thistle chopped down, then I want another layer of fabric going across the front of this mound. It's only 5 foot wide, so for the most part it should stay behind the tree line, and that should give everything I planted on top of the squash mound a really good start without any competition. I'm gonna try and knock this out just in case we're gonna get that rain that they're calling for tonight. I brought the electric weed whacker down here because I don't want to be throwing the wood chips around too much. Oi, pup, what are you doing? You can't be hunting the fabric. I know there's gonna be moles living under there. Nah, you can't be tearing it up, all right? I just got it all down. You leave it alone. Silly pup. I don't like using fabric in the garden, but this is a special case. There's just too much thistle on this mound. And short of spraying poison, this is my best option. And the Royal Empress Palaonian Tomatosa is looking gorgeous. Anyway, let's get started. Oh, the geyser. Aww. All right, we made some good progress here on the squash mound. Hopefully these seeds will pop up quickly and start growing fast. All right, that's gonna be all for this one. I really wanna try and get the yards mowed just in case that rain does show up tonight. If you wanna keep following along with everything here at Whitt Acres, make sure to subscribe down below. Hit that like button before you leave and you can see me and Echo on the next one. Thanks for watching.
Good boy.